Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to Chelsea Fan TV and welcome to another episode of the Chelsea Fan TV podcast. First things first, guys, you know what to do. Make sure you smash the likes, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below on today's episode. And we're over 3 weeks since the season finished now, and a lot of things have taken place. Yes, there's not been a full amount of incomings yet. Nicholas Jackson is virtually done. Christopher Nkunku's finally been unveiled. Moises Caicedo, a second bid, could be imminent at any point in time. But outgoings have been the order of the day, and we've done really well to get as many players off the books as we have done so. So now hopefully we can start to focus on those outgoings again. Pochettino starts work officially on the 1st of July. Then the following week, the players start to come back. So this is now the time for us to try and start picking up the business, get the players through the door, and get the majority of this business done before we head off to the States. But there's plenty to discuss, as always, with Chelsea. I'm delighted to be joined by Kev for this episode. Kev, thanks for jumping on, mate. Massively appreciate it. What have you made of the goings-on since the season finished? Now the transfer window's up and running. Are you happy with what Chelsea have done so far?
We haven't done anything really, have we? Okay, the outgoings is looking like it's accelerating quite rapidly. The deadwood, which we needed to get rid of, getting cleared out bit by bit, which I'm happy about, but we need to bring in more players. I've just seen the squads for next season. Our midfield is absolutely horrific. I mean, our midfield is worse than Southampton's. Went down last year. No shit. So we've got to get our acts together and get that midfield situation resolved as soon as possible. And Nkunku, we already knew that was coming anyway, so it's not like it was about that. World-class player coming in. I'm literally, when we sign Hazard, I'm getting that kind of vibe from that. So he's that caliber. He's brilliant. He can do everything. He can press the ball. He can shoot. He can finish. He can play new positions. Very good player. I'm so honoured to have him at the club. I think with Jackson, never really heard of him before, really. But what I've seen, 13 goals in the Spanish league last year. Not a bad tally for a mid-table team. Kind of reminds me of Drogba a bit. Just his build, his stature, the way he holds the ball up. You know, I think that's exactly what we need. You know, but I still think we could have done with someone a bit more more proven, let's say, in the top few leagues. But let's give him a try. I think him and Nkunku can't do any worse than what we've seen with Kai Havertz and Mount last season. So we've just got to be a bit more confident. But it's the midfield that worries me. I think we must Caicedo for the door as soon as possible. Maybe another two, maybe another attacking midfield and another DM as well. If that's not the case, we're going to struggle 100%.
Yeah, look, I think obviously the incomings are going to start to hot up now that the money's coming from the outgoings and we've shifted on the majority of the deadwood. Look, I think, to be fair, credit where it's due to the ownership, the directors and whatnot. You know, to shift the amount of players that we have already is very impressive. You know, 7 are already out the door. Kante's gone, Ziyech is gone, Mendy's gone, Koulibaly's gone, Kovacic is gone, Kai Havertz is gone, Ruben Loftus-Cheek is gone as well. That's 7 already. And then you're looking at Mason Mount as a question mark over him. That could be 8. Azpilicueta's on his way out. That's 9. You've got Pulisic, 10. Conor Gallagher's a potential to go as well. That's 11. And then so if all these go out the door, that's great. Because we need to trim the squad down as big wages that we've got off the books as well. And yes, you could say we're very fortuitous and we kind of got very lucky in terms of Saudi are looking to massively invest in their league this summer. And we just happen to have 3 players that are appealing to them. So, yeah, we've lucked in there, but, you know, you deserve a bit of luck sometimes. So we've got a bit of a stroke of luck there. But, you know, rather than the fees we're getting in for the likes of Koulibaly, Ziyech, Mendy, it's not big money. We're making, obviously, a loss on all of those players for the money that we spent on them. So, yeah, look, it's the wages off the books is the big one. You know, massive savings off the wages. You know, 6 million a year, Ziyech gone. Koulibaly's 290k a week gone. Mendy wasn't on big wages, but like, you know, players that either don't want to be here or are certain requirements. So that's massive for us. That is massive. I mean, let's just touch on a couple of the outgoings. How do you feel about Loftus-Cheek going? It almost feels like it's a little bit, I don't want to say end of an era sort of thing, but he's been here since he was 8 years old. He's been great for the club. He's been great for the club, you know, and it's such a shame that we never, like, it's such a big what if if he hadn't got injured in that pointless friendly before the Europa League final, because he was playing some phenomenal football under Maurizio Sarri. And it's never quite been the same again. But, he epitomises everything Chelsea is. He works hard, happy to play in whatever position he was put in, always gave 110%. And, you can't ask for anything more than that. But ultimately, it probably is time to move on.
Brilliant attitude. And like I said, he epitomises everything about the club. He played for the badge, never worried about time given on the pitch, never worried about the amount of money he was earning. He literally, when he come off the bench, he'd give his all. And like you said, his injury in his loan spells to Fulham and Crystal Palace kind of knocked him back a bit. I think if that had never happened, the injury, I think he would have probably still been in the squad now. But, unfortunately, these things happen. And the thing is, we can't keep older players just because they happen to be in there on the squad. We need quality. We need quality over quantity. Thing is, with Ruben's Loftus-Cheek, he's not going to improve now. He's 26 years old. He's kind of reached his peak, and for me, he does nothing special when he comes on the pitch. He used to have that little bit about him. I don't think he's got it. He used to have the little bit of, skill and drive, and that he doesn't perform to that level that he did under Sarri. So, the best decision is to move him on. I think personally, he can go to the Italian league and do a good number. I think the pace of the league is very, very slow. It's going to be hard for players in that league to keep up with him. You know what I mean? I think Fabregas has just retired out of that league himself, I think, isn't he? So he played against
they were the second league, so like the
yeah. Oh yeah, true. Yeah, true. Yeah, but I mean, the Italian league is a slow football. It's not the pace of the Prem's probably lost him a position in the team. But I think he goes to the Italian league now. He can get his head down and hopefully does his stuff. I hope it works out for him. Brilliant service to the club, and we have to thank players like that. It's not like a Mount situation. Totally different. I think Ruben can leave his head held high. I think he never, like you said, he never argued about money. He just got on with it. So thank you for your service, Ruben, and all the best.
I mean, look, I think he could have still been quite useful to keep around the place for sure. But ultimately, I think, when we've invested in the young midfielders like your Chukwuemeka's, like your Casadets, like your Andre Santos's, it's going to be much better for Chelsea in the long run to move Loftus-Cheek on. He's probably got aspirations to go and play regular football, maybe try and get back into the England squad. He's still young enough to force his way back in. Go and play regular football in Serie A, a league that should suit his attributes. And for Chelsea, it's going to be beneficial to distribute those minutes out between the young midfielders that we've invested in for the future. So I think all in all, it's a move that works best for both parties. We're going to see Chukwuemeka, who we all feel should have played a lot more football last season than he did. That's kind of one less person in the way, as it were. And Ruben's minutes, whilst they weren't massive, it's a lot more than Chukwuemeka played. So if Chukwuemeka and Santos or Casadei or whatever split those minutes between 2 out of the 3 of them, that's going to be far more beneficial to Chelsea in the long run than it is to keep Loftus-Cheek, in my opinion. You have to kind of make those brave decisions, but you've got to make those decisions that you've got to back you've got to back what you've bought. And, these guys are the future. And respectfully, Ruben is, all right, he's 27 years of age. He's not old. He's not over the hill or anything, but he's not really the future of Chelsea. So we need to give those minutes to the guys that are going to be part of the future of the club, and they're going to take the club forward. And ultimately, whilst Ruben could have still done a decent job in the squad, he's not going to be a player that is going to drive this club forward over the next years and get us back to where we need to be. But ultimately, you can't complain about what he's done. He's been a top professional for the club. He's been a great guy. And we kind of wish him all the best. And, it just goes to show there's ways of leaving a club. The fact that people are a lot more upset about Loftus-Cheek leaving than someone like Kai Havertz kind of goes to show how much, Ruben meant to the fans, like his service to the club. And, he just kind of got it. He just got his head down and he always got on with it. And, yes, he might not have been the most talented boy, but his attitude and his application has made up for perhaps a lack of ability compared to certain players who haven't done anywhere near as well as him. But in terms of other options in the midfield, Kev, obviously, we've got the youngsters. Caicedo, of course, is the number one target. Still no second bid gone in for him yet. Chelsea, I think, are waiting for outgoings to take place. I still feel fairly confident that we will get this deal done. My only concern is that the longer we leave it, if Arsenal, for example, were to miss out on Declan Rice to Manchester City, that then perhaps brings them back into the race. Man United, who obviously can't seem to get together the cash for Mason Mount, but they might be able to find it for Caicedo. Maybe you just never know. But from a Chelsea perspective, you don't want to be running a risk where you've suddenly got Arsenal back in the race. You've maybe got United coming in, and then there's a three-way conversation. Yes, we've agreed personal terms with Caicedo, but you can agree personal terms with multiple different teams. So whilst we're at the front of the queue and seemingly unchallenged at this point in time, we've got to press ahead and get this deal done. I mean, do you have any worries that we might come unstuck here? Because Brighton will definitely want a bidding war. They'll want more than Chelsea just interested.
I've seen a picture of him recently in the Chelsea top with his mum, I think.
Yeah.
So from what I can see, he's a Chelsea fan. Apparently, we've already agreed terms with the player. It's just a matter of us agreeing terms with the club. So hopefully we can push that over the line pretty soon. Like I said, the midfield is well under the level of Chelsea. It needs to be resolved as quick as possible. So if I was Todd or anyone else, get it over the line this week. Stop, don't mess around. If we lose it on him, we've lost that on 2 players so far. Ugarte going to PSG, potentially Caicedo going to another Premier League rival. So, we need to get our acts together and get these players get them across the line, get them in the team. Because at the end of the day, there's not many midfielders in the Premier League what can do what he can do. I'm well impressed with what he can do. When he played against us at Stamford Bridge, last season we lost 2-1, winning everything. He bossed the midfield. Him, McAllister, and that young. Yeah. What, Paraguayan is he? I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal, and that's what I want to see at Chelsea. Him, Enzo, and someone else in there just bossing it. Right now, the midfield that we've got now, I'm worried. Really worried.
I get what you're saying. I mean, on Caicedo, for me, like 85 million is supposedly the asking price. We don't want to have a situation like with the United and Mount where we're having like loads and loads of bids. I'm not saying that we'll get it done in the first bid, because that very rarely happens. It'll probably be the second bid, but our first bid has got to be very, very close to what they're asking for. Like maybe 75 plus 5, taking it to 80. We've got to be as close as we can.
He wants to come to Chelsea. We've got a decent relationship with Brighton from the last couple of seasons. We've sold a couple of players to them, loaned at Levi Colwill last season. So there must be a decent relationship there. I don't think it's far away. But what I'd say is don't leave it too late, because like you said, other teams will be sniffing around for a class up and coming player like Caicedo. So just get it across the line this week. I don't care what it takes. Just get it across the line, bring him in, and then we still need another 2 more on top of that. I think once we resolve the midfield issue, I'll probably say 1 more striker. We're probably back in the top 4 mix. But right now, as it speaks, even with signing Caicedo, I don't think we're anywhere near top 4 yet. I still think, top 8 is a push right now, and that's really a realistic target for us.
I mean, I think we've got, obviously, in Caicedo, I mean, people will look at it as a lot of money. I think, it is a lot of money, but, the market is distorted as it is. And ultimately, for the top players, you're going to have to pay big money for them. And the sort of the midfielders, kind of midfielder that we need, someone that's going to come in and instantly transform our midfield, that's going to cost you a lot of money. But I actually look at it, I don't want to say it's a bargain, because it's ridiculous to call 85 million pounds a bargain. But when you look at it, I actually think it represents a very good deal in terms of, all right, 21 years of age, got very high ceiling, got loads of years ahead of him to develop, is already Premier League proven, which, all right, it's not the be all and end all, but it's a plus for sure. He's already dominating the midfield in the Premier League. He's someone that could be the heartbeat of our midfield for the next 5+ years. All these things add up to being good value for money. And ultimately, I'd look at a move for Caicedo, and I would think, I don't think there's a single downside to it. I literally don't think there's a negative to it. Some transfers there are, but for this one, I mean, can you see any, mate? I can't see any negatives to signing Caicedo.
You've got to think he's South American, Pochettino, South American link there. The link with Enzo, both Spanish-speaking players. He's a young player. Pante's gone. and you're looking at someone to replace Kante, he steps right into that role as a natural replacement. So, you know, £75 million, £80 million is probably a steal. It seems like a lot of money, but when you look at it in logical terms, it's a steal, and we need to get it across the line now, because at the end of the day, there's Lavia being tated as well. I don't think he's on that level yet, but you know, there's not many brilliant defensive midfielders in the game. There's not. So if we lose it on him, who else is it to get? So we don't want to be sitting there regretting leaving to the last minute in a couple of weeks' time. Just get it across the line and just build a team around Enzo and Caicedo, nice solid base, and let's get a couple more around there, and I'm sure we'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I think the Caicedo one, as I said, is a great signing for Chelsea. I've always maintained from the start of this window we had to get one of Caicedo or Rice. It's not going to be Rice, so we absolutely have to get Caicedo in. In terms of another one, though, like I look at it, and at this point in time, you know, obviously the outgoings haven't finished, the incomings haven't finished, but as it stands right now, we've got a midfield of Enzo, Gallagher, Cassidy, Santos, and Chukwuemeka as our five. Now, obviously, we're going to do more business, of course. That right now obviously isn't doing the business, but there's plenty of time left in the window, and we will definitely bring in one, possibly two. Let's add Caicedo to the mix there, right? So we've got Enzo, Caicedo. Let's say Gallagher goes as well. So we've got Enzo, Caicedo, and then the three youngsters in Cassidy, Chukwuemeka, and Santos, right? You look at it, and I look at Romeo Lavia, for example, who Chelsea have been linked with. Obviously, it's gone a little bit cooler now. Liverpool are in talks, Arsenal interested as well. I look at Lavia, 6 months older than Andre Santos. I'm not saying that Lavia is a bad player at all. I think he's a great player. I think he's got loads and loads of potential. But at 18 years of age, right, if Southampton are looking at 45, 50 million pounds, surely, from my perspective, and you might disagree, but surely it's going to be better for Chelsea, rather than dropping 45, 50 million pounds on another 18/19-year-old midfield player. Is Lavia really that much better than Andre Santos? Is he?
We need experience. We need experience. They've got no experienced players in that. Okay, Enzo strikes me as someone who can talk, and he's got the aggression, and he's got the passion. Yes, he does. But the guy can hardly speak a word of English. Yeah. We need, you know what I mean? We need someone in there what knows the game. For James Ward-Prowse, even someone like him. He's underrated, you know, James Ward-Prowse. Why not go for someone like him? He's a bit more experienced. Captain of Southampton for so many years. Literally carried them on the back. Free kick specialist. Bring you something. So he can sit and he can ping a ball all around anyway. I don't know. There's got to be someone we can bring with more experience than these youngsters we're trying to bring through. Youngsters are not going to win you anything. What you're going to have is a team of teenagers on the bench, and then we'll be 3-4-9 who are either like Enzo going to look up to. Enzo's going to be looking around to lift his game. We've got no one in there to say, you know what, do this, do that. Even like a Declan Rice, someone who's very vocal, he's going to organise the midfield. We've got nothing like that right now. We've got Enzo and Caicedo. They're decent, but they're not very experienced players. So
sorry, mate. The problem we've got is that who ticks that box though? Who ticks those boxes in terms of names? Because obviously, you know, there's not really that many out there that you look at in terms of experience. And I always say that, you know, experience doesn't just mean age. You can be early 20s, 20, 21, 22, and still be experienced, you know, because you could have been playing senior football from 17, 18. You could have 3-4 seasons under your belt. So you've got playing experience. But I think what we're looking for perhaps is experience in the big moments, experience in winning the trophies, experience in developing, in delivering in the moments when it matters. Enzo's got that because he's won a World Cup and stuff. Enzo does have that. Obviously, we could do with some more, but he does know what it's like to perform under pressure. I get the feeling that, you know, obviously some of the other guys not at this point in time, but there has to come a time where we trust our recruitment process, and these youngsters have to be given a go at some point. And I'm not saying that I'd be over the moon with going in with just Enzo and Caicedo as our main midfield, and then we're relying on the others. I still think we need one more, but it just depends on who is that one more. That's the problem, because the market's not great.
There is a few midfielders. One of them, I said a couple of weeks ago, Neves has gone to Saudi Arabia. He was one of them. Yeah. There's players There's Marco Barella plays Inter Milan. He was linked to Newcastle. That didn't go through. They want Lukaku. I just want someone in the middle that's got a big mouth that can talk, can keep the ball, link up with Enzo, and it's got a bit of something about him. I think with these youngsters, as much as the exciting prospects, they're not going to pull you over the line. When you're 2-0 down, you're looking for that little bit of inspiration, that little bit of leadership in the middle. They don't strike me. They're not going to be them players for another couple more years. And this is the worrying thing. We can't keep. We've got rid of our Champions League midfield within 6 months. Jorginho, Cover and Kante completely gone. It's left a massive hole in there. We've not replaced them players with experience. We're just thinking we can replace them with aspiring young talents. That's not going to win anything at all. And this is the one thing. We've got to change the model. We've got to get in at least 1 or 2 experienced players in there that can lead. Don't really care about the ability as much, just someone that can talk and lead and get the team across the line when we need to.
I do agree on the leadership front for sure. I think there's a massive lack of leaders on the pitch at Chelsea. You look at it right now, and you've got Thiago Silva, I think who is a leader. You've got, other than that, there's not that many. Yes, Kepa was part of the leadership group that they have at the club, but I wouldn't say he was particularly strikes me as being vocal. He can be at times, but wouldn't necessarily say completely. And then you're looking and you're struggling. Reece James has got leadership capabilities, I would say, but I don't think he's kind of developed into the leader that we all know he can be at this point in time. I think Enzo Fernandez has got leadership abilities as well, but at this point in time, he needs to learn to speak the language first, or at least speak, which is obviously going to be important on the pitch. But there's not that many of them out there, and so whilst for me, like I know Azpilicueta's going, but I would have been happy to have kept him, not for footballing reasons, but for that leadership, that experience, and that know-how around the training ground, in the dressing room, and off the pitch. That's invaluable. So you've got a lot of young players, a lot of very good young players, but they're not the finished article. They don't have experience in the big moments necessarily. And those older, wiser heads who might not play as much are really valuable around the place, even if they're not quite doing it on the pitch anymore. So they're hard to find, and you've got to strike a balance.
It's not even the fact that they're hard to find. I just think with our owners, the model of bringing experienced leaders doesn't fit their mold. They want to be given out 7 to 8 year contracts. You can't give out a 7, 8 contracts for 28, 29, 30, 31 year old. See what I'm trying to say? So that's why they're going for these younger players, what they can bring through, and then sell them on for a profit further down the line. And we are not a youth development team. We are a winning team. All the winning teams that we've had previously, we've had winners in the team. We've brought Balaks in the team. We've brought Cavalios in the team. We've brought Makelele's in the team. We go on and on and on and on and on and on. It never was youth players. We probably have the core beta players that were experienced winners, and then we'd have 1 or 2. Like I think with that little error there, we brought Kalu through. We brought a couple of young men through, and then that was it. But now the model's completely changed. We've gone from the winning mentality team to bring in a core leadership team to play a team where we can bring in these youth players and try and win things. And this is where we're striking ourselves out. I just can't see us even challenging for the top 4 next season. I just can't see it happening unless I think it depends on.
I think it depends on who comes in. For me, at this point in time, it's hard to make a judgment because obviously not all the business is finished. And experienced players are important for sure. Like you want to have some you need some good senior pros at the club. We don't really. For me, we don't. I don't think we have that many senior pros. I mean, Thiago Silva is a senior pro. You probably class Kepa as a senior pro at the club now. He's been here for a number of years. He probably fits into that category. But in terms of that, that's kind of it really, because your senior pros, your Kantes, your Kovacic's and what they're out the door. I mean, even someone like Koulibaly, like I wouldn't call him a senior pro at Chelsea, but in terms of he's a senior pro in terms of his footballing career and whatnot. Obviously, he's gone. I'm not. Look, I would have been happy for him to stay either way, but I think it was clear that that was probably best for all parties for him to move on. I think he could have been better in the second season, but he probably wasn't going to play very much, considering we're probably going to revert to the back four. But yeah, in terms of senior pros and leadership, there's not much around there. And yes, you can develop players and mold players into leaders like Reece James, like Enzo Fernandez, but that doesn't address the issue right now of the lack of leadership on the pitch, and players needing to demand more from each other on the pitch and having a go at each other if the standards aren't being met or the performance is not good. So that is something that needs to be addressed. But it's a hard balance to find. That is the thing. It's a tricky balance to find. Look, I do think that at some point, what we've been doing has worked for a number of years under Roman, but that was coming to an end. Like a season like last season for me was waiting to happen, and that was just a build up of years and years of problems just suddenly all erupting at once. So I do think the club perhaps needs to go down a slightly different route. And look, I like the recruitment style. I like the recruitment plan in terms of recruiting youngsters, but I also fully appreciate and buy into the fact that, Chelsea needs to win as quickly as possible. And, yes, it's great that we could have an amazing team in 2 to 3 years' time, but ultimately, we need to start getting a team that can pick up the wins now. And, are these young players ready? It's tough to tell. They could well be ready, but there's only one way to find out if these youngsters are ready, and that's to give them a chance. I mean, Kev, how much of a chance do you think these youngsters are going to have next season? Because obviously, at this point in time, we've got 3 young midfielders in Chukwuemeka, Casadei, and Santos. I've always maintained that I think at least 2 of those 3 should go on loan. What are your thoughts?
They've got to be given the chance, and there's nothing else we can do. You don't bring in all these young players, just have them sitting around the bench. It's just you're just basically throwing away money. So I think they're going to get the opportunities. There's League Cup games, FA Cup games is a massive opportunity for them to get their position in the squad. Really, Chukwuemeka never got his opportunity anyway last season. I think he was treated badly by us. Brought him in, and he was, from what I said at Aston Villa, he had high potential. So what's the point bringing in a player with that much potential just to leave him, rotting on the bench? I think this season, if he gets a good pre-season under his belt, hopefully he can do himself justice and get himself into the squad with Posh. And, like I said, Ruben Loftus-Cheek's leaving, Kovacic is leaving. He fits that mould. He's a box-to-box midfielder. Hopefully, he can get his opportunity to shine, and I hope he does. Because from what I've seen of him, he's very fearless in the games against City. He's very fearless. He wants to get on the ball. He wants to make things happen. So hopefully, he gets his opportunity. I think with Andre Santos, I haven't seen much of him. From what I've seen in the Under-20 World Cup, he's a leader. He was the captain there for him. So maybe he can learn a few things off a fellow Brazilian, Thiago Silva. So hopefully he gets his opportunity as well. There's plenty of opportunities that are going to be given in that midfield area because it's a poor part of the team. It's not a very covered position. So for the young lads that want to get opportunity, it's their chance to shine, and hopefully 1 or 2 of them can break through and hopefully give us that that future that we need.
No, I agree. I think obviously the 3 of them will be assessed in pre-season by Pochettino, and then there'll be a course of action decided on what's best for those players. And now that we've bought Strasbourg in France in the French top flight, we've got a outlet there where we can send not all of these youngsters, but you could send a Santos or a Casadei on loan to Strasbourg, go and play in the French top flight, which is a decent division, a good standard of football, and we can manage their development there. So, like, a big plus of this multi-club system is that we can control the development of our young talents. So maybe a loan for a Casadei or a Andre Santos to go and play at Strasbourg could be a massive plus for us. I don't expect all 3 of those young midfielders to be part of the squad next season. I would expect 2 of them to go out on loan. depending on incomings. If only Caicedo comes in, then maybe 2 of them will hang around and 1 will go out on loan. But having that multi-club model is going to be very useful exactly for that purpose, is that we get to control the development of our youngsters, which through normal loans is a lot more difficult to do. I mean, mate, just briefly on that, what are your thoughts now that we finally got the multi-club model up and running? You excited to kind of see how it works?
We had a similar thing with Roman Abramovich, didn't we, though? With Vitis Arnhem.
Yeah, we had a feeder club.
Yeah. So it's a similar kind of, but I think they're trying to make it more like the Man City project. So, Man City, they've got New York City, they've got Melbourne FC. Very smart business, because what you can do them is they're the feeder clubs for the youth players to go into a higher league. Obviously, what you do them is Strasbourg have been linked with the Andres Russian one.
Zakarian.
Yeah. So basically, what they're going to do is Strasbourg are going to buy him, has a couple of seasons there, and then we can either loan him from there or just do a little £10 million deal from Strasbourg to Chelsea. So basically, what it is, it's smart business in a sense, but this is what you got to do now. You've got to find loopholes in the market for you to, expand your business, and that's what these Americans are doing. They're doing all the right things, but it's still early down the line. I'm not getting too excited yet, but in a sense of us getting the youth players some more experience in a good league, it's very important, and I think it is a very good idea for them to do.
Yeah, I think it ticks all the boxes. It's great, really. But yeah, of course, we need to get more than one club. I think it's going to be a number of years, a couple of seasons at least minimum, until we perhaps start
in Portugal. Start seeing in Portugal as well, don't they?
Yeah, I think they're looking
at as well.
Yeah, they've been looking at Rio Ave and Portimonense as well.
Yeah, there you
Portugal.
go.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it's great in terms of developing players, and I think also another massive plus is that if these sides, produce any talented players that look half decent, we can kind of take them and sort of see how they work out. And if it doesn't work out, we can send them back or whatever it might be. So yeah,
the best thing to do is for them to do things now, because you do know with every little loophole, you wait for FIFA, they'll see it and they'll clamp down. They'll probably say 1 owner per team. There's got to be something in place within the next few years which will stop it happening. So you got to, you know what I mean. You got to pick up on these little loopholes early doors.
Yeah, exactly.
FIFA start getting involved. So
I think
it's a good idea.
And do you know what, mate? That's one of the things that the new owners have done so well is do things that no one else has thought of. The amortizing over long-term contracts. No one was doing that. That's always been there. That's not a new thing. No one's done it.
Thank you.
Multi-club model's not exactly a new thing, but to come in this quickly, take the plunge and get the ball rolling is great. What they are is they're doers. They'll come in and they'll be like, right, we're not going to fuck about with this. We're doing it, and that's great. And ultimately, some things they might get some things wrong along the way, but they're
they have.
But they're prepared to take action,
taking risks
and do shit. Yeah, they're prepared to take risks, which is much better than just sitting back and being comfortable. So,
what you're trying to think of me is, you can take risks with lower teams, but with Chelsea Football Club, you're taking a massive risk. This is a royalty club, you know what I mean? And we're sitting there watching these owners take risks. Okay, it looks exciting for a new fan, but for someone like me, I just want to see structure involved. There's a lot of madness going around, new clubs, this and youth projects and this and the other. I just want to see the things right on the pitch. And right now, we're far from it. We're far from getting it right on the pitch right now. But in terms of, trying new ideas and new things, yeah, it's all good. But I'd rather see that happening after we've got the things on the pitch right first. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Ultimately, what happens on the pitch is the most important thing. But I think also putting things in place for the long term is great as well. I mean, mate, let's move on from this. Let's move on to the centre forward situation. Now, obviously, we've brought in Nicholas Jackson. It's just a matter of time now until we get that full verbal and we get that full official announcement from the club. But it's all done, past his medical and all that. €37 million. So I think €2 million more than the release clause. But that by paying that little bit more, we get more favorable payment structure. So it looks better on the book. So again, I mean, it's not a new thing in business, but again, it's just smart business. What are your thoughts on him? I know, like, obviously a lot of us don't know too much about him, but for me, I look at it and I think this is another one of those low risk, high reward signings, because you're signing someone for, all right, just over £30 million. £30 million is a lot of money, but in this market and this day and age in football, £30 million is nothing. It's a real steal. It's a real steal. So, if it works out, we've got ourselves a great player for really cheap. If it doesn't work out, he's still young enough at 22, where in 2 to 3 years' time, we can still sell him on at 25 years of age and at least make our money back or make a profit. So I look at it as a bit of a win-win situation. And even if it didn't work out, we haven't wasted very much money. So I look at him and I think,
I can see him being a real handful.
Yeah.
Of when we sign players I don't know about, you'll find me on YouTube doing my research, and I've probably watched half an hour to 45 minutes clips of his videos from Villarreal last season, done my research, 13 goals in the league last year for a mid-table team, which is not bad. Hold plays brilliant. He's good with his back to goal, could take it on his chest. He can turn, good feet for a big man as well. Gets a lot of assists and he can finish as well. So this is what we've been crying out for. I still would have liked to get someone a bit more experienced at that level. There's been talk of Vlahovic being involved with a swap deal with Lukaku. I think he would have probably been more suited. Even Tony, but I think with Tony, very unlucky with his transfer ban, not with his football ban. That's the reason why we didn't go in for him. But with Jackson, from what I've seen, he strikes me as a person that could do a good job in the Prem, just because his physicality. We've been playing with Kai Havertz as a striker for a season. Zero physicality, zero aggression, can't play his back to the goal. We've been crying out for a number 9 who can drop deep, and Lukaku even didn't want to do it. He just wants to be in the box. We need someone who's going to drop deep, he can hold the ball up, he can turn, he can link play up, and he's going to bring me that. We've been crying out for that player since Diego Costa, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I look at him, mate, and I think he's got all the attributes to do well. Obviously, having the attributes is not enough to do well. You've got to obviously do the business on the pitch. But and there's that. And I think I look at him and I think he's a decent finisher. He's tall. He's physical. He can hold the ball up. He's got good link up play. He can also play out wide. He's got that directness and can take players on. Despite his, even though he's 6'1" and he's pretty tall, he's not the best in the air. So that's an aspect of his game that needs to be worked on. But again, at 22 years of age, there's plenty of time for him to develop as a player. And I think under Pochettino, there's a manager there that is very good at developing young players. I don't really think he could necessarily have a better manager than Pochettino at this stage in his career. And then you also look at it, and I feel that, well, Chelsea have been down the route of signing expensive, proven strikers, and none of them have worked out. So why not try a different approach? They've obviously seen something in this guy. The data, the metrics, the numbers they're getting back, the eye test from the scouting is showing that this guy's got something that we think can be that we think is good enough for us. Let's give it a go. Let's see how it goes, because we've been down that route, as I said, so many times. So why not try something different? It can't be any worse than what we've been seeing over the last years in terms of our centre forwards. It absolutely can't be. And I think, with Nkunku as well, if Nkunku does play off Jackson, then we've got something there which could potentially maybe be quite good. Jackson's link up play and hold up play maybe can work well with Nkunku. That there's every chance.
Very good combination play there. We've got the wingers to do it as well. We've got Madueke and Mudryk and Nkunku, and we've got that big man up front. Like I said, I still want Vlahovic. I still want someone easy, all-round striker. He can head the ball, he can finish, he drops deep, in behind. He brings everything. But with Jackson, I still think it's a low-risk buy, but in terms of improvement, Pochettino can improve him as a player, and hopefully we can see an end product, if not this season, the season after. But we want players that are at the pinnacle with Chelsea Football Club. You know, we're taking a lot of risks buying these players that no one's ever heard of. Which, you know, we need to go and get a Vlahovic. That's the kind of caliber we need to get right now. That's what we know. We've known for 20 years. Us going out and into the market and getting the best. And right now, it doesn't seem like we're doing that. We'll have to see about Jackson. Hopefully, it does work. But I think he could be useful. I think he could link up with Nkunku very well, and I hope he does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how he's used, how he develops under Pochettino. I mean, before we get into other strikers that might come in, what are your thoughts on Armando Broja? This is a big season for him. Pochettino reportedly likes him, wants to work with him. He's obviously coming back ahead of schedule from that ACL injury. It's going to be interesting to see, has he lost a yard of pace? Is he still explosive like he was before? But I look at Broja, and I think the club have backed him. There's a new 6-year contract signed back in September, October time. You know, he's a good player. He's got those attributes. He's quick. He's physical. He's got a good finish on him as well. He reminds me a little bit of Diego Costa in terms of those attributes. Maybe not the pace side of things, but certainly the other side of things he does. It's going to be really interesting to see how he develops. It's such a shame that he picked up that injury because he would have played a lot of minutes last season. I'm sure of it. I think Lampard would have used him a lot. I think Potter would have certainly used him quite a lot as well. I mean, how do you see him faring next season?
Like you said, it just depends. He needs a good pre-season now, and he needs to see that knee. When you get a bad knee injury like that, I'm telling you now, it affects you mentally. If you're going into a challenge, it's got to be playing your mind. So if he recovers mentally from a bad injury, and then we can push on, he's a brilliant player. I absolutely loved when I've seen him playing. Every time we come onto the pitch, the way he used to chase down the ball, he used to want to get out wide, he used to want to come drop deep for the ball. He was a handful for the defenders. And even at Southampton, he was a handful. There's a clip where he put Harry Maguire straight on his arse. You know what I mean? Like, he's a handful. So, you know, there is a lot of potential there, and there is a quality player. He can finish as well. So there is, but it's all about his mental side. If he can get over the serious injury, I'm sure he'll push on, and he can be a very useful player. I'd think he'd definitely be either second choice or third choice, depending on if you bring another striker in next season.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with another striker, because you think if another main striker comes in, that automatically reduces Broja's minutes quite considerably, and it probably reduces.
Well, he can play. Yeah, Broja can play on the left or right as well, though, can't he? So
yeah, I mean, I look at the Jackson signing, and just quickly on this again, I look at it and think, right, we've got Mudryk, Madueke, Sterling as 3 main wingers, right? We presume that Pulisic will go. And then you think, right, well, Jackson and Nkunku can both play wide. So between the two of them, that can provide the fourth winger spot, rather than going out and spending more money on another winger that is more than likely going to be a third or fourth choice option. We're better off getting by with Jackson on the odd game down the left or right, and the same with Nkunku. So I think that's a better way to go with it. But obviously, you touched on Vlahovic. I mean, the other one being strongly linked is Lautaro Martinez at Inter Milan. Pochettino, according to reports, is a big fan of the player. I think he's done well at Inter. The last 2 seasons, he had back-to-back 25 plus goal seasons in all competitions, which is not bad going. Again, the question mark that always gets put over him is, can he play up front on his own? Because obviously at Inter Milan, he's played up with Lukaku, he's played up with Dzeko. Look, I'm not saying he can't. I mean, obviously it's different than playing in a partnership, but I mean, ultimately,
I don't think he's what we
need. You're not convinced.
I think he's more of a centre forward than out and out forward. I think he's someone you play off of Lukaku or Dzeko in the hole. You know, I don't think his hold up play is not going to be good enough. He's only small man. We need someone who's going to hold that ball up. You know, we've been missing that for a physical presence in that attacking area since Diego Costa, and Jackson can do it. And the only other 2 strikers that could, over 3, is Osimhen, Tony, and Vlahovic. Them are the only 3 other strikers I could say that could come in and be that striker that we're looking for. I think with Martinez, if you've got a striker, you want to play him just off a striker. And that's not what we need, Rob. We've got Nkunku who could do that. If we're going to bring him in as a number 10, maybe so. But I think as an out-and-out striker, I don't think he'd be what we need.
I mean, do you? There's part of me that thinks I'm not entirely 100% sure that we even get another striker. Now, I'm not saying that the club aren't looking. I think they obviously are, but I wouldn't completely rule out not getting another one. I think it would represent a sizable gamble. You'd be going with Broja and Jackson and Nkunku kind of as another option potentially through the middle as well. It represents a big gamble. And, we were 30 to 40 goals short last season in terms of our Premier League tally to where we need to be competing in. And you could look at it and you think, well, are Jackson, Broja and Nkunku going to get 30 to 40 goals between the three of them? And you'd have to say that's averages 10 each in 10 each minimum to get 30 more goals. Yeah. And we probably need more like 40 more goals. And I'm just not sure at this point in time that those three could necessarily get, say, 12 to 15 goals each in the league. I just can't see it happening. But I also not sure if we do go in for another one because as you said, the market's not amazing. We're not going to get Osimhen. We're not going to get Kane. You're then looking at Vlahovic or Martinez, which again are going to cost a lot of money. So look, I think we do need another one, but only the right choice. Don't just bring one in for the sake of it. It's tricky to get right.
Smart.
We've got to be smart.
They've got to be smart. And like I said, I was looking through my I ain't got Twitter, but I just go on it for the transfer speculation and updates. Apparently, that I talked about a bit ago, Lukaku in the deal for Vlahovic. That is probably the most amicable thing to do. Like Lukaku wants to stay in Italy. Juventus want another striker. Vlahovic wants to leave, wants to come to the Prem. Maybe we can't have him Champions League, but he comes. And I swear, if we get a striker of that caliber, top four is more or less secured. He will get you 20 goals minimum just by himself. And when have we had a striker bringing the 20 goals in?
Well, not since Costa. So,
it's embarrassing to say that. And we spent how much millions. And we can't keep going for these second-rate strikers. This is Chelsea. This is the reason why we've fallen beyond City. City have just gone and freaking signed Haaland. They're not messing around. They're going out and they're getting the top class players. Chelsea should be doing the same thing. And this is why we're falling behind. So we need to go and get a Vlahovic. We need to go and get a top striker who's going to get us 20 goals. As what you're going to find is, it's going to be hard for us to bridge that gap between where we was last season and fourth place.
I mean, yeah, you definitely need it. I think you need a 20 goals a season striker, or if you don't have one of those, you need a front line where they all chip in 12 to 15 goals between them. So you could have it, for example, if you get Mudryk with 12, say Nkunku 15, and Madueke like 5 or 10.
When we had Pedro, Hazard, and Willian, that season. We didn't really have a top striker up there because Costa left, but Pedro could finish freaking left foot, right foot. Willian could finish, and Hazard, all three of them chipped in and combined it with a decent amount of goals to get us in the top four. Now, our front three, Madueke is not going to get you many, Mudryk's not going to get you many, and Jackson's unproven in the Prem. So where are we going to get these goals from?
That's the thing, isn't it? Those are the two routes you go down. You either get a reliable source of goals that you rely on for most of your goals, or you find a front line, as we've been saying, that where the front four, like Nkunku, Jackson, Madueke, Mudryk, or whatever it is, can chip in sort of 8 to 12 goals each between them, and that kind of makes up our sort of 40 goal deficit that we had last season. But it's a lot of goals to make up, but again, there's not an awful lot really, in terms of strong striker links. I mean, I would expect more to take place once all the outgoings are finalised, once Caicedo is eventually finalised as well. I'd expect things to maybe pick up in developments for strikers. But at this point in time, there's not an awful lot of conversation going on around the strikers.
Just got to get a Vlahovic. Just to stop messing around now. No, we've got to go out and get top class striker. And when we got that, we can build with the core of the team. Then we've got 2 good centre backs coming through. We've got Enzo and potentially Caicedo. So we've got a nice core there. We've got attacking midfield in Nkunku, and we've got a striker. The core of the team then is set up. Get another goalkeeper next season. The core of the team set up right now. That's the missing link up there. We need a striker up there which is going to get the goals. And we haven't had that, like you said, it's Diego Costa. And that's, 5 years ago. We can't keep playing and messing around because it's going to happen season.
Yeah, it's gonna
falling behind. And this is football club, mate. We shouldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what we do and how it gets resolved. And Pochettino, obviously, ultimately is going to be the guy tasked with trying to get the attack to click and get us scoring more goals as a side. Because our problems last season wasn't the amount of goals we were conceding. We were in the top 5 defenses in the Premier League, but we were in the bottom 4 for goals scored. Nottingham Forest scored more goals than us. So that's the big problem. Yes, the midfield needs to get better.
Yeah.
And yes, we could probably tighten up a little bit more defensively. But the big problem is the top end of the pitch. So, yeah, we scoring goals has been our problem for a long time. But, mate, just to kind of round out last sort of 5 minutes or so, mate, what are your thoughts on the goalkeeping situation? Well, this is another one that obviously we know needs addressing, but it's probably the bottom of the list of priorities in terms of centre forward, midfield, and goalkeeper. Goalkeeper would probably be at the bottom of that list. Edouard Mendy's gone, so another goalkeeper needs to come in this summer. But the big debate is it going to be a new number 1, or is it just going to be someone else to come in as a number 2? Now, we've been linked with Andre Onana at Inter. It looks like we've kind of cooled our interest there. We've pulled out of negotiations, apparently, because Inter are asking too much. I don't know if that's a negotiating tactic. We might go back later. Inter might drop their price, maybe. There's obviously consideration for Mike Maignan at AC Milan as well. That would be expensive. There's then Diogo Costa at Porto, which Portuguese outlets kind of keep linking us with, even though there's not really anything from any UK media on links to him. And then you've obviously got the Valencia goalkeeper, Mamavashvili as well, which I don't know an awful lot about, but he's meant to be reasonably decent. I mean, what do you think we do, Kev? Do you think we're going to buy a first choice keeper, or do you think we're just going to buy a second choice and reassess it at the end of next season?
As much as it disappoints me, I wanted Kepa out a couple of years ago, but I think the reasonable thing to do and the smart thing to do would be to keep him on board. And that's just because he knows about the club now. I think he is going to be one of the leaders in the dressing room. You know, quality-wise, he's far from it. You know, he lets you down every time. It comes to making a point-blank stop, he won't do it. Or comes to making a catch-up corner, he won't do it. But we're not going to be challenging for the Premier League anyway. So I think right now, while we're just building to get back into step 4, keep Kepa, and maybe next season make it a priority. But for now, I think it's having that talker in the team, having that someone, say, Thiago Silva's out of injury, we've got Badishile, got Fofana, very inexperienced young players. Just someone behind them is going to give them a bit of mouth, organise them a little bit. You know, I think if we go and get a young goalkeeper, which has been a stupid thing to do, it would be the wrong thing to do. We need someone who's pretty experienced. You get in at a Kepa, probably hold out another season, and look to get a world-class keeper next year. But it's very unfortunate that we can't get rid of him because his wages.
Wages are too big. I mean, look, ultimately, I don't think it's going to be a complete disaster if he's the first choice next season. I think everyone knows we need a new goalkeeper, but ultimately, again, it goes back to being smart, as we've touched on. Like, there's no point just bringing a goalkeeper in for the sake of it. It's much better to wait another season, and if your guy that you want is available not this summer but the following summer, then you just wait until the guy you want is available. Don't just bring someone else in for the sake of it. And I think, to be honest, as well, with the goalkeeper, it's kind of interesting because Pochettino is going to want to make his own decision on Kepa. So that's why I think with a goalkeeping situation, we're not going to really see anything until after pre-season because Poch is going to want to make his own assessment of the player. Now, yes, of course, he would have seen Kepa play before, but he wouldn't have looked at it in great detail. So I think he's going to want to make his own choice as well. Obviously, on the outgoings list, we've had loads of players that needed to go. It was kind of obvious that didn't want to be here. But, Kepa's one of those guys that thinks obviously happy to be here. And Pochettino will want to look at him before he makes a final decision on the player. So I wouldn't expect any goalkeeping stuff to be resolved until maybe after pre-season. So we could be waiting a while longer. But a goalkeeper is going to have to come in because Mendy's gone. It's just going to depend on if it's going to be a new first choice, or we just bring in someone a bit older, a bit more experienced to be a number 2. And the goalkeeper market is like the centre forward market. There's not a lot of top goalkeepers out there that are available for transfer. And
Maybe just bring in Hugo Lloris is leaving Tottenham, isn't he? Okay, I'm almost thinking at the box here. He said someone a bit of experience.
But you could go for a bit of a veteran stopper. You could look at a Keylor Navas or something like that.
Yeah, there's Hugo Lloris. He's worked at Posh before. He's still capable of pulling off a brilliant save. He's London based. He's going to be looking for a club. He can probably be someone in the change room. Very experienced. He's took France to World Cup finals 2 in a row. Maybe someone like that in the dressing room, just a backup to Kepa until next season. Where we can bring in someone. There's like Diogo Costa from Porto.
It's expensive as well, isn't it?
It's going to cost them 70-80 million pounds. But that's what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we paid that for Kepa, didn't we? And look,
we did.
But Edison, 70 million pound.
Yeah.
What's his name for Liverpool? He was 75 million pounds. Alisson Becker. He was 75 million pounds. So that's what you get in the market's very fluctuated at the minute. So you've got to be paying over the odds for a world-class keeper. But the world-class keepers are what makes you a Champions League team into a Premier League winning team. And it's proven when Edison went to Liverpool and they won within a year. And then Alisson went to Liverpool, Edison went to City, and they both overtook everybody else just through signing world-class keepers.
You have to have a top keeper if you want to win. You have to. Yeah, you have to. I mean, even I know we won Champions League, but Mendy at that point was playing phenomenal. One of the best keepers in the world at that stage. You have to have a top goalkeeper, and ultimately, we don't have one of those. We've got a good goalkeeper, but not good enough to win the big competitions, to win the big trophies. And ultimately, over the course of a season, as much as Kepa improved last season, he's going to cost you more points than he's going to save you, and that's not a good position. Position to be in with a keeper.
His distribution, his catching skills, he comes to making a point blank save, lets himself down. It is far from it. But there is a keeper there. Villa away pulled off 3 of the most amazing saves.
He's a good. He's got big moments in him.
Yeah. If he kept that consistency throughout the season, mate, he'd be a world beater. But he'll go and make 3 world-class saves like that, and then against wherever it is, Wolves, we went to Wolves, and he kicked the ball at a touch 5 times, and off corners, he just looked like he wasn't there anywhere near it. You've got to be consistent. And this is the thing. When it comes to set plays, other teams will clock onto it. They'll see it as a weakness. And the majority of the goals that we conceded last season were corners and the set plays.
Considered a lot of set play goals.
There you go. So,
but it's gonna be interesting to kind of just see what happens, see how the market pans out over the next week, next couple of weeks, and see what happens. Obviously, we'd love to get a few more out the door. We'd love to see Moises Caicedo as close to being wrapped up as possible. We'd like to see a conclusion one way or another to the Mason Mount saga. That needs to be dealt with. We can't have Pochettino starting work on the 1st of July and having the Mount situation dominating everything. It needs to be resolved before then. But I think there's exciting times ahead. There's a lot of work still to be done. But I think there's room for optimism and room for us to be positive and feel excited about the upcoming season. Of course, once we get a few more big names in the door, then that positive feeling obviously goes up another notch. But I think we can be quietly happy with kind of how things have gone so far. The outgoings were the priority, whether people want to admit it or not. They absolutely were the priority to bring the size of the squad down. We've done very well to get as many as we have off the books. So let's see what the next few weeks have got in hold for us. And there's bound to be all sorts of twists and turns with Chelsea and whatnot. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing kind of where the journey takes us as we kind of gear up for pre-season, the tour of the States as well. Let's see what happens.
I'm excited in a sense, but right now, as I look at that team, I'm kind of worried. I'm pretty optimistic in the sense that we were smashing the cash and we're bringing. But when you spend nearly £700 million and we look at that squad, what it is now, if we carry on the way we're going, you know, I'm really worried. But let's see. Let's see. We have to be confident. You have to be confident. You have to be enthusiastic about your team, which I always have been from growing up. But right now, looking at that squad, we are a long way away from even Champions League at the minute. So let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks, and let's prioritise some midfielders at least.
Man, let's see what happens. Seems like a good point to round out this episode. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you smash the likes, subscribe to Chelsea Fan TV if you haven't done so already, and make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. And we'll catch you again in another episode soon.